In the late 1930s, the world stood on the edge of a storm few could fully comprehend. Cities bustled with life, nations rebuilt their economies, and ordinary people dreamed of peaceful futures. Yet beneath this fragile surface, tension pulsed like a distant thunder. Old wounds from a previous war had never truly healed, and powerful forces were quietly reshaping the global order. Ideologies hardened, armies mobilized, and political leaders spoke with increasing urgency about destiny, power, and survival. Within a few short years, these tensions would erupt into the most devastating conflict humanity had ever witnessed, a war that would engulf continents, redraw borders, and alter the course of civilization forever. To understand how the world descended into World War II, one must begin with the aftermath of World War I. The Great War had ended in 1918, leaving Europe shattered and exhausted. Millions were dead, entire regions lay in ruins, and societies struggled to rebuild from unimaginable loss. In 1919, the victorious Allied powers gathered in Paris to negotiate peace, culminating in the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty imposed severe penalties on Germany, forcing the nation to accept responsibility for the war, surrender territory, reduce its military, and pay enormous reparations. To many Germans, the treaty felt less like a peace agreement and more like a national humiliation. The economic burden crushed Germany's fragile post-war economy, while the sense of injustice lingered deeply in the national psyche. What the treaty created was not stability, but resentment, a volatile emotional fuel waiting for a leader who could transform anger into political power. Throughout the 1920s and early 1930s, Europe remained politically fragile. Democracy struggled in several countries, while extremist ideologies gained traction among populations desperate for order and national pride. In Italy, Benito Mussolini rose to power, promising strength and unity. His fascist government rejected democratic institutions and emphasized aggressive nationalism, military power, and authoritarian rule. Mussolini's regime became a model for other movements that believed democracy was weak and incapable of solving national crises. Across Europe, people watched as authoritarian leaders seemed to restore stability and purpose in societies shaken by war and economic instability. But it was in Germany where these forces would grow most dangerously. Amid economic hardship and national humiliation, a former soldier named Adolf Hitler emerged as the leader of the Nazi Party. Hitler's message was simple yet dangerously effective: Germany had been betrayed, its greatness stolen by enemies both within and outside the nation. He promised to restore national pride, rebuild military power, and overturn the Treaty of Versailles. Through powerful speeches, propaganda, and political maneuvering, Hitler gradually built support among millions of Germans who longed for strength, stability, and a return to greatness. In 1933, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. Within months, he dismantled democratic institutions and established a totalitarian regime. Political opponents were silenced, freedoms were abolished, and the Nazi state began reshaping German society according to radical ideology. While Germany embraced Nazism, another powerful figure ruled in the East. Joseph Stalin had consolidated control of the Soviet Union through ruthless political purges and authoritarian policies. Under Stalin, the Soviet Union underwent massive industrialization and military expansion, but his rule was marked by widespread repression, fear, and the elimination of perceived enemies. The presence of powerful authoritarian leaders across Europe signaled a dangerous shift in global politics. Democracies appeared fragile and divided, while dictators projected strength and certainty. At the same time, the global economy collapsed in one of the worst financial disasters in history, the Great Depression. Beginning in 1929, economic systems around the world crumbled. Banks failed, factories closed, and unemployment soared into the millions. Entire families struggled to survive, and governments appeared powerless to stop the crisis. Economic despair created fertile ground for radical political movements. Nationalism intensified as countries turned inward, seeking to protect their own industries and citizens. In many nations, people lost faith in democratic governments and began supporting leaders who promised drastic solutions. The economic catastrophe did not merely weaken nations, it destabilized the entire international system. Against this backdrop of instability, Adolf Hitler began openly challenging the post-World War I order. One of his first major actions was to rebuild Germany's military in direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. German factories produced weapons, soldiers were trained, and military strength rapidly expanded. Many European leaders were alarmed, yet they hesitated to confront Germany directly. Memories of the horrors of World War I remained fresh, and few politicians were willing to risk another catastrophic war. In 1938, Hitler took a bold step by annexing Austria into Germany in an event known as the Anschluss. German troops marched into Austria without significant resistance, and the two nations were unified under Nazi control. Once again, the international community protested but took little concrete action. Hitler's ambitions grew even larger. Soon he turned his attention to Czechoslovakia, demanding control of the Sudetenland, a region with a large ethnic German population. European leaders attempted to avoid war through negotiation. In September 1938, Britain, France, Germany, and Italy met in Munich to discuss the crisis. The resulting Munich Agreement allowed Hitler to annex the Sudetenland in exchange for his promise that he would pursue no further territorial expansion. Many believed the agreement had secured peace for Europe. But Hitler had no intention of stopping. In March 1939, Germany occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, proving that the Munich Agreement had been nothing more than a temporary illusion. European leaders began to realize that war might be inevitable. Tensions escalated further when Germany signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union in August 1939. The pact shocked the world. Despite their ideological differences, Hitler and Stalin secretly agreed not to attack each other and even divided parts of Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. Then, on September 1, 1939, German forces launched a massive invasion of Poland. Tanks rolled across the borders, aircraft bombed cities, and German troops advanced with terrifying speed. The German military strategy known as Blitzkrieg Lightning War combined rapid armored assaults with coordinated air attacks, overwhelming Polish defenses in days. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The conflict that would become World War II had begun. What followed was not merely a regional war, it became a global catastrophe. Germany quickly conquered large parts of Europe, including Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. Nazi forces dominated the continent with astonishing speed, while Britain stood nearly alone in resisting German expansion. Meanwhile, in North Africa, German and Italian forces clashed with Allied armies in fierce desert battles. In the east, Germany launched a massive invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, opening one of the largest and most brutal fronts in the history of warfare.